The story begins on an ordinary Friday night, the kind of evening when the city hums with quiet expectation. Marcus Vane, 35, billionaire CEO of Vane Tech Industries, had never believed in blind dates. His world revolved around contracts, negotiations, and investments, not romance. Yet there he was, sitting in a dimly lit restaurant, adjusting the cufflinks of his custom-tailored suit while silently cursing his best friend for signing him up for this ordeal. Marcus had power, wealth, and influence, but what he didn't have was time. Everything in his life was a calculated decision, every move strategic, every moment accounted for. Love, that was a distraction he had trained himself to avoid. Still, he couldn't deny the sting of loneliness whenever an evening ended with nothing but spreadsheets and shadows. Across town, Evelyn Hart was rushing. Rushing was her life's natural state. Between her job at a design studio and her role as a single mother to 6-year-old Lily, she barely found time to breathe. Tonight her coworker had begged her to attend a blind date in her place, claiming an emergency. Evelyn had refused at first. Lily's bedtime mattered more than meeting a stranger, but her neighbor offered to watch the child for 2 hours. She didn't expect anything out of the date. In fact, she wasn't even dressed for one. She wore a simple navy dress, slightly faded but clean, and tied her auburn hair into a messy knot. She told herself she would stay just long enough to apologize to the stranger and leave. The universe had other plans. When Evelyn arrived, the host led her to a private booth where a man who looked like he had stepped out of a magazine was checking his watch. His presence was commanding, broad shoulders, sharp jawline, eyes like cold steel. She almost turned around. Marcus looked up, expecting another heiress or influencer. But instead he saw her. A woman with honesty in her eyes. A woman who looked real. "You must be Evelyn," he said, rising politely. Yes. Sorry, I might actually be in the wrong place," she laughed nervously. "I'm filling in for someone else, so sit." His voice was surprisingly gentle. "Please." She sat. And just like that, the world rearranged itself. Their conversation began awkwardly but softened as the minutes passed. Evelyn found herself surprised at how easy he was to talk to. Marcus asked genuine questions, about her work, her dreams, her favorite books. He listened with an attentiveness she wasn't used to. Most men saw a single mother as a responsibility they didn't want. He didn't know she had a daughter, and Evelyn didn't bring it up. It felt too delicate, too personal for a first meeting, especially a mistaken one. As they talked, Marcus noticed things he had never paid attention to before. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she laughed. The faint tiredness around her eyes, suggesting a life far more demanding than she let on. She had an air of resilience, humility, and quiet beauty he found grounding. She wasn't charmed by his wealth. She wasn't trying to impress him. And because of that, she impressed him more than anyone ever had. 2 hours passed like a stolen moment in time. When they left the restaurant, he offered to walk her home. She hesitated, then agreed. The walk was filled with soft conversation and city lights shimmering on wet pavement. But the real turning point came when they reached her apartment building. Because Lily, hearing her mother's voice, burst out the door and jumped into Evelyn's arms. Marcus froze. Evelyn's face paled. "Lily, sweetheart, you're supposed to be inside with Mrs. Collins." The neighbor rushed out, apologizing. "I'm so sorry," she got excited when she heard you coming. Marcus watched silently as Evelyn soothed her daughter, her voice tender and steady. And in that moment, he saw what she had done. She had raised this child alone. She had carried the weight of the world, silently, without complaint. And yet she still smiled with warmth. It hit him like a punch, the realization that he wasn't meeting just a beautiful woman. He was meeting a mother who had fought battles he had never imagined. When Evelyn turned back to him, bracing for judgment, Marcus said softly, "You didn't tell me you had a daughter." "I know. I'm sorry. I didn't want to complicate things. Most people don't stay when they find out." "I'm not most people." The look in his eyes burned with sincerity. But love stories aren't love stories without complications. The next week, His board of directors learned he'd been seen walking a woman into a modest apartment complex. Rumors spread, fueled by those who hated the idea of their billionaire CEO being involved with someone far beneath their social sphere. Marcus's ex, Vanessa Locke, returned with vengeance in her smile, whispering poison in the ears of investors. He's losing focus. He's distracted. Meanwhile, Evelyn faced her own storm. Her ex-husband, absent for years, suddenly reappeared demanding rights he never cared about before. He discovered, through Vanessa's meddling, that the CEO dating his ex-wife might be a lucrative situation. Threats were made, pressure mounted. Evelyn tried to pull away from Marcus, fearing she would ruin his life. But he refused to let her disappear. One evening, after her ex made another scene outside her apartment, Marcus arrived, jaw tight with fury. "Why didn't you call me?" "Because this is my mess," she whispered. "And you've worked so hard for your world. I won't be the reason you lose it." He stepped closer, voice barely above a breath. "My world means nothing if I can't share it with the woman I..." He stopped, but she heard the unspoken words. "Let me help you, Evelyn." Help came in the form of lawyers, protection orders, and public statements that shut down rumors with ruthless efficiency. But beyond the legal battles, Marcus showed up, consistently. He brought groceries, built Lego towers with Lily, helped Evelyn finish her late-night design projects, and held her when exhaustion finally cracked her armor. Evelyn fell for him, not for his wealth or power, but for the man who read bedtime stories with more enthusiasm than he used in corporate earnings calls. For the man who looked at her as though she mattered in ways no one had ever made her feel. But Marcus fell harder. He fell for the woman who didn't want a single thing from him except kindness. For the mother who sacrificed everything for her child. For the strength she didn't flaunt and the love she didn't withhold. He fell for what she did, for surviving, for giving, for rising. Months passed, and their connection deepened into something neither of them had expected but both desperately needed. The turning point came one rainy evening when Lily ran to Marcus, hugging his leg, and said, "Are you going to stay for dinner? Mommy smiles more when you're here." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Marcus crouched down, brushing Lily's hair gently. "I'll stay as long as you'll have me," he whispered. Later that night, after Lily went to bed, Evelyn approached him with trembling hands. "You've given us so much. I don't want you to feel trapped by responsibility." He cupped her face. "Evelyn, loving you isn't a responsibility. It's the first choice I've made for myself in years." Their kiss that night wasn't just passionate, it was a promise. A promise of a future where loneliness had no place. A future where a billionaire CEO found home not in penthouses or boardrooms but in a tiny apartment with warm light and a girl who called him her hero. A future born from a blind date, and sealed by the moment he witnessed what she had done. Love found them not despite their worlds, but because of them. And neither ever let go again.